All right, let's jump right into the Book of Ruth. It's actually one of the shorter stories in the Bible, but wow, does it pack a punch. We're talking about these huge themes, loss, loyalty, redemption, that feel just as real today as they did thousands of years ago.
So that's the big question, right? How do you find hope when you've lost everything? And that question is really at the very heart of the Book of Ruth. The story, it doesn't pull any punches. It starts right in the middle of a tragedy. And we're going to see exactly how this ancient story maps out a path from complete devastation to this incredible, unexpected hope. And it all comes down to a few really powerful choices made by real people.
Okay, so first things first. Before we dive into the plot, we've got to set the stage a little bit. Let's get some context on what's driving this incredible story.
So this whole story takes place during what's known as the time of the Judges. And you got to understand, this was a pretty lawless, chaotic period in ancient Israel. But here's the twist. You're not going to find any epic battles or big political dramas here. Nope. Instead, the book zooms way in, focusing on this small, really intimate story. It's all about faithfulness, deep kindness, and this idea that maybe, just maybe, there's a bigger plan being quietly woven through the everyday choices of ordinary people.
Okay, so let's get into the story itself. And just a heads up, it does not start on a happy note. It actually kicks off with a series of crises that basically leaves our main characters with nothing.
Wow, it is just one thing after another. It all starts with a famine, which forces this family, Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, to leave their home in Bethlehem and move to a foreign country, Moab. But then, things go from bad to way, way worse. First, Elimelech, the father, dies. Then his two sons, who had married local Moabite women, they die too. So in just a few short years, Naomi is left a widow, completely stranded in a foreign land with her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, who are also now widows.
And right here, this is the turning point. This is the moment the entire story hinges on. After all this loss, Naomi decides she's got to go back home. She tells her daughters-in-law, look, you should go back to your own families. But what happens next? Well, it changes absolutely everything.
So you have this choice, this real crossroads. Orpah, she makes the choice that honestly makes perfect sense. She says a tearful goodbye and heads back to her family where she actually has a shot at a future. But Ruth does something completely different, something radical. She just clings to Naomi, refusing to leave this woman who has nothing, who is basically a stranger in Ruth's own homeland. And this is what she says. It's maybe one of the most powerful statements of loyalty you'll ever hear. Just think about what's happening here. Ruth is literally abandoning everything she's ever known, her country, her family, even her gods. She's burning all her bridges to her past to tie her fate to an elderly, broke widow who has absolutely nothing to offer her. This single moment of selfless commitment, that's the emotional core of this whole story. Okay, so she makes this incredible vow. Where does it take them? It takes them back to Naomi's hometown, Bethlehem. But their problems are far from over. Now they face a brand new challenge, just surviving. And when they get there, their situation is, it's dire. Think about it. Two widows, no man to provide for them, no land, no money. In that society, they were at the absolute bottom of the social ladder, basically invisible. And while Naomi is just, stuck in her grief, Ruth immediately snaps into action. So, what's her plan? She decides to make use of an old Israelite law designed for the poor. It was called gleaning. Basically, it meant that people with nothing could follow the harvest workers and pick up any grain they dropped. Now, this was tough, humbling work for sure, but it was literally their only way to get food. And then, by what seems like total chance, she finds herself working in a field owned by a guy named Boaz.
Okay, and here's the kicker. Boaz isn't just some random guy who owns a field. Turns out, he's a close relative of Naomi's dead husband, Elimelech. This connection, and Ruth has no idea about it at this point, is the key that's going to unlock everything for them. And this is where the story takes another turn. We see an act of kindness, a really profound one, that starts to flip this whole tragedy on its head. So word gets back to Boaz about this new foreign woman working in his fields. And what's interesting is it's not just her hard work that people are talking about. It's her unbelievable loyalty to Naomi. Her reputation totally precedes her. And Boaz is so moved by her character, that he goes out of his way to protect her.
He tells his workers to make sure she's safe, that she has food and water. It's her loyalty that sparks his kindness. See how that works? And this is where that family connection becomes absolutely critical. Boaz was what they called a kinsman redeemer. Now, this was a really important cultural and legal custom. It meant that a close male relative had this duty, this responsibility, to step in and save a family line from just disappearing. He could marry the widow, buy back the family land, basically make sure their name and their future didn't die out. And this is it, the climax of the whole story. Boaz, seeing what an incredible person Ruth is, he steps up. He does his duty as the kinsman redeemer and marries her. And in doing so, he doesn't just get the property back. He restores their honor, their security. He gives them a future. The story that started with famine and death now ends with a marriage and the promise of a whole new life. It's an amazing turnaround. So, what's the point of all this? What are we supposed to take away from this incredible story today?
Well, the lessons here are just timeless. First, you've got this sheer power of faithfulness, how one person's loyalty can literally change everything. Then there's this idea of compassionate love. The Hebrew word for it is hesed, and it's more than just a feeling. It's a loyal love that acts. It's a commitment. And both Ruth's and Boaz show it in spades. The story also kind of hints that there's a bigger plan at work, not through some huge miracle from the sky, but through the good, decent, everyday choices people make. And of course, on top of all that, it's just a fascinating peek into what life was like back then.
And that really just leaves us with this one last thought to chew on. The entire story of Ruth, everything we just talked about, it all hinges on one single, selfless choice made when things were at their absolute worst. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? In our own lives, what kinds of amazing changes, what unexpected futures could be set in motion by our own small, everyday acts of loyalty and kindness?